Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to today's album review. So I'll share the comment. Brett doesn't know what we've got for you today. Everybody else does. So let's have a little look. The old comment. So it's from our regular contributor, Will CD.
Thank you, Will.
Do you consider older? This, by the way, we're talking about George Michael here. Do you consider older his third solo album? Since this was his most personal and written after he lost his lover from AIDS. Some songs of this album were written about his lover, Anselmo, particularly the ballad Jesus to a Child, who was a memory of his late lover, and the bossa nova style of this song was a legacy of his lover's origins, since his lover was born in Brazil. Jesus to a Child and Fast Love were the big two hits of the album. Jesus to a Child, the first single, represent perfectly the mood of the album. The album was influenced a lot by pop, jazz, and bossa nova, but also included R&B and Fast Love, Spinning the Wheel and Star People and dance pop in The Strangest Thing mixed with bossa nova with The Last. Really appreciate the detailed explanation there, about the albums. Always useful for us to know. So thank you for that. So let's have a quick look at the album before I ask Brett what songs he knows from this. So yeah, Older is the first studio album, as we know. It was released in 1996. At the time of release, the album was a huge commercial hit, particularly in Europe. Or in America, received with a lukewarm commercial approval. So won't go into it too much. So we have here only 11 songs, which is fairly standard for an album, but they're long songs because the album is almost an hour long. You can see there most of those songs are over 5 minutes. So Brett, let me just go over to you. Are you familiar with the album, or if not, any of the songs on the album?
So out of the 11 songs, I know all 11. I know this album. I've actually got this album on CD. I can't show it to hand because I haven't got it right next to me here. So, I've got this album.
Right. Okay. I won't ask you what you think of it because that'd be giving too much away.
Give too much away. So
I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, I know Fast Love, I'm pretty sure is what I'm thinking of. Pretty sure I know that one. That's the only one that stands out for me. Jesus to a Child, I may know, not sure till I hear it. Pretty sure I know Fast Love. That's what I'm expecting. Seems to be a bit of a mix of things. This bossa nova stuff, whatever that is. Well, I think from the explanation, some kind of like Latin American feel to it, pop, R&B, jazz fusion, soul. Yeah, I don't know. It might be all right.
I think Will's right up at the start. Pretty much is a great sort of explanation. Obviously, like I said, I don't want to try and give sway too much, and I don't want to have any influence on things like that. I will say it's an album I actually haven't heard for a long time. I've kind of sort of forgotten about it a little bit. So I'm actually I will be listening to it again. It'd be quite good to do so because I haven't listened to it for a while. I'm pretty sure you recognise Fast Love when you hear it. Jesus to a Child, I'm pretty sure you may recognise once you hear it, but I can't imagine you'll know many of the others. Possibly Star People, maybe. But I think the bossa nova, so that's kind of like this sort of Latino sort of South American jazz kind of feel, which I personally think is the strongest thing that comes out from the album. So I've really got my feelings on how you may get the album, but I actually would look forward to hear sort of what your take on this one is, to be honest, because I know you're not a massive George Michael fan, neither am I, but this is one of the albums I sort of came across and owned and had listened to. Like I said, I just don't want to give too much away on my opinions on it.
Yeah, So normally I ask you, are you looking forward to it? But you already kind of said you are, because just you haven't heard it for so long.
Yeah, just pure basis. Haven't heard it for a long time, to be good to re-listen to it again after all this time.
Okay, so whatever you do, don't start listening to the 2002 expanded edition, okay? Because it'll be a very long video.
Okay. I haven't got, but I have got the version I've got is the bonus one, which has uncut as well, which has a DVD. Does it show that? Does it say that on there? Yeah, it's one of the early times where it had like interactive elements to it. So I think it had a music video on there and something else. I'll see if I can fish it out ready for the next thing to show it.
Okay. Well, there we go. We're going to head off and listen to the album, and we will let you know exactly what we thought of it in just a few seconds' time. Okay, guys, we've now listened to the album. I hope there's no major audio issues at your end. We were having some problems with the headphones and stuff, so we are going naked today, audio-wise. Anyway, we're going to get straight into it. The first song, like we did with our previous album review. If you've watched that, we've changed our structure a little bit to kind of keep you in suspense. So let's have a look. The first track of George Michael's older album is Jesus to a Child. So I seem to recognize this, but don't know it well, if I know it at all. Like, I'm not 100% sure I actually know this song, but maybe the chorus sounded a little bit familiar. I describe it as a slow song. I found it quite underwhelming. It certainly wasn't an action-packed song. A real steady Eddie. It does build up in places, but not much. I just felt for such a long song, I just need a little bit more from it to be able to like it.
Not a good start for you then. So as I said from introduction, obviously it's an album that I know and own as well. So on different sides being so, obviously I could tell you a little bit more. So different some of the songs I was actually, because I knew the song quite well, I felt like I could do a bit of other additional research whilst listening to it as well. So this was one of the release songs. It did get into the charts, at #1 in the UK. As you said there, it's definitely a slow song. Even for me, I really like this song. And what I was going to probably say for the album, not to put too much of a spoiler in, but a lot of songs, they are a grower. They're not ones you sort of just pick up, listen to, and try and enjoy straight away. I think they sometimes take a little bit of time. But I can totally get where it can probably perceive to be quite boring, quite long for a first sort of opening track. But I say there's a lot more deeper meaning to the song, and it's a song I really, really like. But I can totally see it from a different side, where actually, especially for the opening track, and I hope you don't mind me saying this as we go on, it's setting its stand out, isn't it? It's just kind of a feeling of what the album is probably to come as we'll go through. So yeah, that's what I'll say with that one there.
The next track was Fast Love. So I know this one well, as expected. Female backing. And at least this one's more upbeat. I don't mind this song. I've never been a super fan of this classic, but I've never minded it either. I never minded listening to it. Song kind of changes up halfway through. And then there's that bit towards the end, which I've always wondered. Is this... I don't know which way round it would be. I don't know which song came first. But it sounded like from the Men in Black, like Will Smith. So Brett, I'm sure you can answer this question. Is that just a coincidence, or did Will Smith take it from this song? I actually quite enjoyed listening to this, just because it's been such a while. Like I say, I've never minded the song. It's not a bad song. At least it's upbeat.
Yeah, but we'll come to your question there in a second. So yeah, this is now sort of the upbeat song. And it's funny because when we talk about an upbeat song, really in hindsight, it's still not massively upbeat. I think for the album, it definitely is, but it's still not like a proper big dancey tune. Again, it's a song I really like. So it's sort of well known, released in the UK, got to number one. If anyone's interested, the title actually also sounds like Fat Slugs when you listen back to it. So if you ever listen back to it, you can sometimes hear Fat Slugs rather than Fast Love. And it takes a sample. It's from a song called Forgive Me Not, which Will Smith also sampled for Men in Black. And this might not be the last time I mentioned Will Smith. So, don't know, watch your space. If you like a bit of Will Smith, stay tuned, because I might mention him again at some point. This is the upbeat song of the track. Really like it. It definitely needs it on the album a little bit. But I said it's not my overall favourite on there.
Okay, track 3 was Older. Sounds like we're going to be in for a really slow one, judging by the start of it. And I was like, oh, this is a bit boring. And this is even more boring than Jesus to a Child. I just don't enjoy this type of super slow music. This can send anyone to sleep. And there was a long instrumental at the end. Not good.
Yeah, we're already on track 3. These are the released. These are the best songs on there. This actually is probably. I originally put it down as my. I think before we were going to react to it, I probably would have said this was my favourite song on the album. But I also don't disagree with your points. It is a long song. It is slow. It is meant to have that sort of. I wouldn't say like put you to sleep. But I quite like. It's quite a nice sounding, like sort of I would say more of a sort of relaxing kind of kind of thing. And again, I said like with Jesus Child, it's definitely like a grower of a song. It is more sort of all about sort of the lyrics. I don't know. Like I said, but what I like about this one is almost like telling the whole story. That's like a movie. He's sort of saying, I said, you really need to. And I said, I'm the same as you, not big on the lyrics. And that's what I said, this is an album to grow, and you still need to appreciate it for some of the lyrics and the storytelling that he's doing, because this is not long after he's sort of come out as being gay. And I think there's a lot of sort of most stories about there. So he talks a bit about his partner. He had a partner who died of AIDS. Don't want to bring it all down on this, but you kind of need to know that to get sort of some of the vibe of some of the songs on the album. But yeah, I think I only got to number... I say early, but still number 3 in the UK chart. So it still did quite well considering the type of song it is.
Yeah, listen, I get all that stuff about songs with deep meanings, but I just don't pick up on them at all. I say it every time. So for me, it's just more about listening to I like the song more, just in terms of how it sounds. Next up, we had Spinning the Wheel. We had some backing on this one. This one was a bit like a slow version of Fast Love. I thought there was a slight improvement on Older, but it's still boring. And then what was that at the end? Like lighting a fire, sounded like.
I don't know. Maybe they've had a different version on that one. I don't know if I can remember that fully on that particular song. But the same thing you said there, again, got another sort of long song here. Again, is another, I think it was the 4th song released from the album. This one only got to number 12, so not even making it to the top 10. This I never used to, but again, it really sort of grew me and really sort of, it's definitely like a kind of sort of slow version of Fast Love. And again, it's really good because it does sort of tell this sort of story. So, you know, like I'm telling some of the lines, you know, talking about first like 5 o'clock in the morning, you're still not home. And so all these things are going through his mind. And like, so the next verse is now 6 o'clock in the morning and you haven't phoned, and that same sort of thing. So you kind of sort of build his sort of whole picture up and probably feel what he's going through as well. You can imagine the same sort of things. So yeah, for something I never used to like, I think this is close to now maybe being second favourite, but almost after listening again, probably one of my more favourite songs on the album. And I said we've got this sort of jazz. We haven't really talked about sort of the genre in terms of this sort of jazz bossa nova, which we're going to hear a lot more going on. But like I said it's more sort of this sort of tender story and that sort of jazz club kind of thing, which we'll go on to a bit later as well.
Track 5 then was It Doesn't Really Matter. I'll describe this as a kind of slow, cute song. Nothing much is happening. There's no upbeat chorus. It's a bit jazzy. It's relaxed. It's a calm song. But yet again, it's just very underwhelming. Just kind of waiting for something to happen, but it never does.
Yeah. I remember you asked me in the introduction we did before, about if I knew the songs, and I joked and said, yeah, I know all of them. I probably because I forgot about this song completely. So it's one that sort of really sort of passed me by, really. I wouldn't have remembered it on the album. As you said there, it is a nice theme song of the album, that sort of jazz, slow, relaxing, but yeah, nothing really happens, can be a bit repetitive. It is just a nice, good album song for it, but yeah, I totally forgot it would have been even on this album. So yeah, a little bit forgettable.
Track 6 was The Strangest Thing. Almost a kind of whispery style of singing for this one. This one has an 80s feel to it, even though the album was from the 90s. Some nice instrumental sounds going on. Feels quite soothing, I'd say. It's yet another long song. I'd say it's a bit better than some of the others, but it's that key word again that I keep using. It's the B word. It's just still on the boring side for me.
Yeah, and I totally sort of get that. I sort of get that 80s vibe. I sort of put some 90s as well. I put it like a dance vibe, but not like dance music we probably imagine dance music, but more that sort of I know, being like in the back room, a bit more relaxed, chilling out kind of sort of dance sort of vibe feeling to it there. And again, I think it just gets your head sort of thinking around there. Again, really relaxing, really nice to listen to. And like I said, it's something I think you probably just need to listen to a few times to sort of enjoy. But yeah, not too much happens there. But it's definitely, for me, one of the slightly better ones than some of the other songs on the album.
Number 7, To Be Forgiven. The usual relaxed style. Pleasant song, but not very upbeat. As usual, has a sleepy feel to it, a Mediterranean feel to it. A nice song, if I can even sort of imagine this, right? It's a nice song if being performed live, not even necessarily by George Michael, just someone just singing that particular song whilst having a meal outside in a restaurant in the Mediterranean, like in a hot climate somewhere. That just song, someone singing it. I can imagine it in that kind of setting.
Yeah, exactly, Dan. I think this is where we go back to that sort of term of like that bossa nova. So I think that sort of is what was like sort of Brazilian jazz type music. So again, that's sort of Mediterranean kind of beach. So it's all kind of the same aspects of that one of there, really, in some regards. Again, it's one actually a bit forgettable from the album when I was thinking back to it. But I also agree, it's that little bit. I think a lot of these songs are long, and I feel like for some of these, not as bigger hits or bigger ones, maybe in a nice possible way, they could have been a little bit shorter. I've also over time learned to appreciate them and get them, but like I said, thinking back being me, how I first probably listened to it, yeah, probably that little bit too long. But again, really relaxed, and yeah, just in that sort of right, nice little environments, be a nice little song to listen to. And again, it just fits well with the album.
Okay. The track 8, Move On, a different kind of start. Some kind of gathering of people, like a dinner party. Had a jazzy start, another calm, relaxed song. Very jazzy, this one. Not really getting out, the song doesn't really get out of second gear. I mean, again, it's just a bit boring.
Yeah, this song really sums up the album. We said toward the start of that sort of people gathering at a party kind of thing. I imagine that sort of jazz club thing, and listening to this sort of style of music in that. That's how I picture listening to the album. I said you wouldn't listen to it when you're running. Wouldn't listen to it. Well, you might listen to going to bed to relax and go to sleep. But yeah, that's the sort of place environment you would want to listen to. I've also played, so we've got that bossa nova, jazz kind of feel. For probably like sort of crooner music, so sort of 1950s men in tuxedos, clicking the fingers, kind of that kind of speakeasy and alcohol places, drinking, listening to sort of stuff. But yeah, had a nice little beat to it. It's that little bit, I won't say faster, but not as slow as some of the other ones. As I said at the start, it's a song that sort of just sums up the feeling of what the album is like.
So track 9 was Star People. I thought I might have known this one from the title, but don't think I did. Dinner Party in the background is continuing. Beginning of the song. A little bit different, but still has that same chilled vibe to it. There's a little bit of backing in this one as well. It's a bit more lively.
Yeah, but would you say it could be a bit livelier? Would you say?
Say that for every song.
Yeah. The reason I say especially for this one, so there was actually a radio edit version of this song. The reason I know that because I actually got the deluxe version, so with the one that you said you didn't want to do the upper part of the album, which is on there, and it has a version of that Star People, which was done for radio. I would say it'd be good if you want to go back in your own time to listen to that one, because that's a more upbeat version of the song, and you might actually recognise it. Because you might, if you heard that one, you might, actually, I might recognise it more, even though it does sound the same, but it can sound a bit different. I would say it's more upbeat than even Fast Love that we had earlier, and I think it is actually. I like both versions, but depending on what mood you want to probably listen to it, then that's what we do there. So this song was a released one, and it actually got to number 2 in the chart.
Hang on a minute, sorry.
Do you want to?
What was released? This version we listened to, or the one you were just talking about, the fast?
Sorry, so Star People, the song we just listened to, the upbeat version was released, not necessarily the album version. So yeah, that got released. It got to number 2, and what beat it to number 1 was R. Kelly's "I Believe I Can Fly."
Much better song. Much better song.
I thought if you go now, you're probably more likely to buy that one than this one here. But I
probably did buy it at the time.
So yeah, we just missed out on that one there. But yeah, I get it for that. But I think if you've got a chance to listen to the radio edit version,
I'm sure I would know it.
Prefer it slightly.
I'm sure I'd know it because I recognised it, Star People, but I think I'd know it. I'm sure. It's track 10, You Have Been Loved. This is a real slow one from the off. We have to wait a whole 57 seconds before any vocals arrive. A very sleepy song. I was like, geez, this is boring. Probably the most boring of the lot. And that's saying something. He's just got no oomph in his singing voice in this song. It's just, I say lazy. That's almost kind of like a lazy style of singing. I don't mean that in like a critical way as such. It's just the style he's using for this particular song, and to be honest, the album as a whole. And I just don't like it. I just think it's rubbish.
So save your opinions right for the end there. Don't want to give any spoilers. just in case we were thinking, oh, I wonder which way was going to turn.
Yeah,
So I have to say, yeah, so normally these later songs I actually don't know as well, because a lot of the times I used to listen just to the start of the album and never really got too far into this one. But as I said, as a grower, actually, I'm going to really, really like this song. And this was actually a surprise one. I'll probably make this my second or third one there. It doesn't mean I don't agree with some of your points. I do totally get where you're coming from there. I think it's... like I said, maybe you had to get to be so critical of reviewing it and actually sort of listen to it for what it is and just be in the right mood. And maybe if you knew what you were getting into, or change your mindset and how you listen to appreciate it. I agree. I think George Michael could do a lot more with his voice, but I think for this particular album, the way he's singing, I think his voice is very underrated and is actually a lot more appreciated. I think that's when you know what you're getting into, you can feel it in a different way. So I never knew this was actually a release song as well. You know? And unbelievably, got all the way up to number 2, which I do find quite, even though I really like the song now, and I'm surprised that he got that high up. Do you want to have a guess? Maybe what was that number 1?
I don't know, but I'm sure it was a damn better song than this one.
Okay, well, I mentioned him earlier, and I said to stay tuned if you wanted me to mention him again. It's our mate Will Smith with the song Men in Black.
There we go.
All right, there. So everyone's sampling that same sort of tune from there. So that did to number 1. So yeah, I'm pretty sure if old you was down at the shops, you would still probably looking to buy Will Smith's Men in Black. Then
any day. Song. All right, last track then was Free. This was just a boring instrumental with some vinyl scratching sounds. I don't get what this is supposed to be. It's a very odd ending to a very underwhelming, boring album. He did say right at the end, feels good to be free. I mean, I could have sung that. I could have that sentence for that few words at the end. Don't get it.
You didn't. Yeah, listen, I totally agree. I mean, I had sort of mixed opinion. I've had mixed views sort of changing from this. And I was same as you, like, it's a real bit of an anticlimax for an end of an album. And for all the albums that we've done, we've always talked about interlude and songs that don't have lyrics to, and they're somewhere in the middle of the album or they're shorter. We've never had this is the shortest song on the album, Lucky for You, for only like just under 4 minutes. But still relatively long for no lyrics, apart from the lyrics you said at the end. And right at the end of the album as well. It's weird. Yeah, it's grown on me over time. And what I do like, it almost, and it's probably not for you, where it feels like a sum up of, almost like a mashup of all the different songs we've had previously in different ways, really. I don't really fully get it and the meaning behind it. Apart from saying, feel free to be free. It's probably a nice meaning to it there. But it's just difficult when the album's been as it is to then have that at the end. Yeah, it's a bit of an anticlimax, but like I said, I have grown to enjoy it and appreciate it a little bit more. I still agree though that technically, I still think it'll be better to have maybe one of his more dance. So the last track, maybe Star People at the end to finish on a little bit of a high, and maybe this sort of track, maybe like a hidden track potentially. Yeah, that's me sort of nitpicking from there.
Okay, well, that's the end of our song by song review. We're going to now sum up and give our opinions. So I'll start with the positives. Fast Love. And going on to the negatives, let me just say this, right? We've done the last album we did. It was a genre of music that I don't like. It was a while ago when we recorded it. It was a symphonic metal, wasn't it?
Symphonic gothic rock, yeah.
Yeah, that's not for me. I didn't like the album, but it's understandable. It's just not my genre of music. This, however, George Michael in general, he is a pop artist. He's a pop singer, or was a pop singer. I know, he had his, not like maybe a typical pop singer, like banging out the big hits, but was this bossa nova style album with jazzy stuff. But he's still what I would consider my genre of music, the sort of music I would listen to. So with that being said, I'm just so disappointed with George Michael, his music. Like, before we listened to these 2 albums, I think the other album was definitely better from what I remember of it. I don't think I was so critical as I am with this one. I've never, before listening to these 2 albums, I didn't ever think I really liked George Michael just from his released songs that I knew. I mean, Fast Love, like I say, I don't mind it. It's not a bad song. But I've never really taken to him and now I understand why. Because he's just not for me. And this might be controversial, but from what I've heard of him, I think he's highly overrated. The songs, the two albums I listened to, just don't get, just not for me. Like I say, it is kind of my genre of music, but I don't know why he's so popular. Didn't like the album. Probably one of the most disappointing albums I've ever listened to, based on the fact it's a genre of music that I could potentially like, but it was just so. I get the fact it's somber in the sense of it's a sad album and stuff because of there's the story behind it, but I just didn't like the songs. I just thought they were just boring songs, apart from Fast Love. Now, the only thing I would say in what's the word, like support, saying against that or supporting him, is that you mentioned it earlier. We say this a lot. Probably not in the best situation to like listen to the album when I'm literally sitting on my chair like I am now. I'm not doing anything else. I wasn't even multitasking. I was literally just listening to the songs, listening, paying attention, writing stuff down, making notes. So I don't think that's the ideal way, certainly, to listen to this album. I think there is a place and a time for this. I think maybe, yeah, if I was at a dinner party or something, a nice restaurant, and this album was playing, I might, like that might actually be all right. I might think this is, pleasant enough music. So I would say that's the only, kind of saving grace. I'd say I just probably wasn't in the right place, situation to be listening to this particular album. Brett, over to you.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on. No, I totally get everything that you're saying put across there. The only thing I actually disagree on, and this might be controversial and totally on the opposite side of the spectrum, where I think a lot of times George Michael sometimes is underrated in some regards, because I think people sometimes think of either his cheesier pop hits, but actually he's a lot more as an artist in that sense.
What are his cheesy pop hits?
Well, I think people think back. It doesn't really count as George Michael, but stuff we did like with Wham, all that sort of stuff. Give Up to Go, Freedom. Right. I'm making it as if like I'm a massive George Michael listener because obviously I've got one of his albums. The reason I've only got his album is because it was probably back in the day where back into CD shops and I had like the bargain areas. It was like it was like less than half price on sale. I didn't buy it at the time. Later on in life, and it was a deluxe one. It was only like a few quid, I don't know. I like it was one of those, I like a couple of songs on there that I all recognised, enjoy it, and had the same sort of things that you probably did, and didn't probably appreciate as much. Thinking, I know even the songs on there I knew were slower ones, but I didn't expect the whole album to be as slow and as sleepy as was. And it's been over time. I'm talking about a lot of time where I sort of really got to sort of grow and appreciate it. And as you said there, you sort of have to be in the right frame of mind. You've got to maybe know a little bit behind it as well. And I look at it, it's about relationships and some sad things that's happened in his time and him coming out as well. And then when you take it for those side of things, it sort of takes on a different meaning. But yeah, I think when you sat there to listen to it, critique it, how you really feel and think, and especially like I said earlier, I'm the same as you. Lyrics is not our strongest forte when it comes to songs. We're very more about pop hits, if it's catchy, if we like it, and this isn't the album for that. But it's my fault, since like I said, over time I have grown to appreciate this album a lot more, but I still at times find it difficult to listen. I have to still be in the right sort of mood or feeling to listen to that. And for the first time ever on this one, just for this one, I actually did a little prediction. Oh, I realised my camera's blurry. But you have to trust my word on this. Now, people might think I've just written anything, and I've probably got loads of these from here. It's all sealed.
Yes, prediction.
Okay. Prediction of what I thought you would think of the album.
Okay.
And I've written here, again, it's going to probably come out blurry, but trust me, there's no problem me lying on it. But here, Backstreet Brett thinks Backstreet Lee will not like the older album. I've heard that here a bit too arty, a bit too samey, not variation. And a question mark, I think Fast Love will be your favourite song from this. So I'll take a photo of one of that there. I probably would have written boring, but I didn't want to be that harsh on it. But maybe that's what I was going to without saying too arty, too samey. But I totally get understand your comments, and I think maybe in the years and months to come, you look in a different way and see in a different light. There may be, but I that wouldn't be against you there. But I totally get how you feel about the album. But I said for the first time, I think we're very different, and actually I don't. But I said I've had years to probably get used to it.
Well, at least we've got like a nice thumbnail now. Is something like we have two completely different opinions. So it's something like have a nice, easy to make thumbnail. Okay, well, that's good. We don't always see eye to eye on an album, but we usually do. So it's good that for once we haven't. I don't know. I guess if you're more into the lyrics and you can pick up on lyrics better than I can, then maybe people could enjoy it more. Take it for what it is, but okay, it is what it is. Didn't enjoy it. And we'll end it there. Thank you as always for the request. Keep them coming.
Maybe hold off on the George Michael request for the time being, just for Lee to get back. Otherwise, I think anything George Michael comes your way, you're going to be negative straight away.
And we'll see you again soon for the next one. Bye.